Hi guys, I hope you guys had a great Independence Day, and once again, many truthers spread the misinformation that some big event was going to happen. Well, once again, it didn't. We must understand that all of the predictions are by people who are not in the know. In actuality, the entire operation is so compartmentalized that I don't know if anybody knows the entire time frame, even Trump. I believe that everything is based on completing predicate events, and that we must fix the judicial and legislative branches before disclosure occurs. I think that the Fed also must go down, and the potential of a real estate crash could occur as a counteroffensive by the dark ones. The Federal Reserve is a tough one. Chairman Jerome Powell has consistently said that he wouldn't step down despite pressure from President Trump calling for his resignation. Powell said that the president does not have the legal authority to fire him without cause. Specifically, he has emphasized that the Federal Reserve's independence is protected by law, and a dismissal would require a formal process with demonstrated cause, such as malfeasance or failure to perform duties. Trump appointed Powell in 2018 after the capitulation tour. So we need to ask if Powell was deliberately put in place back in 2018 for what is to happen with the Fed. Besides a lot of patriotism and a parade, the only big thing that happened on July 4th was the One Big Beautiful Bill. And we're going to take a look at what exactly the bill did for us and why it was so important that this bill passed to the current administration. Let me say that I believe that the One Big Beautiful Bill, as hyped as it was a critical step for us to move on with the plan. The One Big Beautiful Bill is not a replacement for Nasara Gasara. It's a stepping stone until everything is in place. The bill pretty much stops this nonsense of obstructing deportation efforts of this administration, allowing more resources to be dedicated to prosecutions rather than defense of so many frivolous and weaponized judicial hearings. We will be needing a lot of fair judges with clear dockets in the near future. I believe all of this unrest being promoted about immigration can become dangerous and expensive if swift action isn't taken. Remember, it is estimated that approximately 20 million illegals are in the country. That's about 6% of our population and doesn't include sympathizers. So we have to first get unvetted people out of the country. If you think we should just run backgrounds on these 20 million people, it's not that easy. The immigrant needs to fill out an application which these illegals have refused or otherwise failed to complete. From that application, many validations must occur, including local governments across the world. Simply having clear Interpol records doesn't mean anything today. Complete background checks must consist of social media posts and affiliations to assure that they, the applicant, doesn't mean harm to us. Who is going to pay for the resources to complete this level of validation on so many people? When it's done legally, you pay filing fees to cover this. If it's paid for those here now who came illegally, shouldn't anyone seeking to come legally have their fees paid? Do you want to pay for the world to come here? There are many moving parts to the full restoration of our freedom across the world, and we must keep in mind that this is a long-term plan. One bill or one arrest isn't going to fix everything. We are taking small necessary steps, and what is happening today could all change very quickly. I have deliberately not addressed this bill previously because, as we know, these proposed laws go into the House and Senate and are completely changed by lawmakers, so I see no benefit in the yo-yo elation and disappointments that come with constantly following the drama. Now that it's a done deal, here's a down and dirty summary of what they've done and how and when it will affect us. The first provision of the OBBBA bill is a permanent extension of the 2017 Trump tax cuts of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent, stopping them from expiring. What does that really mean for us? Well, American families and legal immigrants get to keep enjoying those lower tax rates, saving about $1,300 each year for a family of four. That extra money increases disposable income for households and small businesses. Personally, I think that's nothing more than a token, but it's moving in the right direction. The next thing is that the bill increased the standard deduction by $1,000 for individuals, $1,500 for heads of households, and $2,000 for married couples through 2028. This change is being promoted as boosting take-home pay by as much as $13,300 for a typical family. If upping the standard deduction can put that much back in our pockets, then I think that's significant. But again, time will tell. Next is the no tax on tips and overtime pay. Well, again, I think this was overhyped. Tim was on the edge of his seat believing that his check would increase, but anybody who thinks that is wrong, and that's why this is really more hype than help. People need help now, and while the bill does eliminate federal taxes on overtime income for workers, they are still going to take the taxes out of your check, and when you file your taxes, you allegedly get it back. Let me explain why this doesn't help. In Tim's case, he works 20 hours overtime each week. The job pays terrible, but over 40 hours, they must pay time and a half. So Tim's weekly overtime is nearly half of his check. That's a lot of our tax money that the federal government is taking from his check and sitting on. I don't see this as a big win for people relying on overtime for their income. The other people who will benefit are people receiving tips. Now, this is a different story. These people get all of their tips and pay the taxes on it when they file their taxes. And to be realistic, a large portion of tips aren't reported anyway. So this bill does lessen the tax bill due, while the other automatically debits your tax money and wants to refund it later. Can they change the W-4 filed with their employers? I think there needs to be a clarification on this and hopefully a way to adjust it so people get these savings up front. Next, there's an expanded child tax credit. The change here increases the child tax credit to $2,500 per child, which is a $500 increase each. In an average family with 2 or 3 children, it's an extra $1,000 to $1,500 for childcare costs. I'm retired and clueless about childcare costs today, so I don't know if that is big enough, to be honest. I know that I don't know what I'd do if I had to leave my young children in a daycare. Personally, I'd rather see that credit applied to stay-at-home moms so we can reestablish the family unit. Then there is the additional tax deduction for seniors, which provides an extra $6,000 deduction for seniors age 65 and older, with adjusted gross income below $75,000 if single, or $150,000 for couples. As a senior, I was really disappointed in this one because it does nothing to help seniors now. While it may take the stress off at tax time, people need relief now. This does nothing to help these people keep their homes or increase the quality of their life. Next is the auto loan interest deduction for U.S.-made vehicles. I remember when consumer loan interest was deductible, but there's a twist now. The car loan interest deduction is only for vehicles that are assembled in the United States. Since almost all European manufacturers have manufacturing plants in the U.S., and many U.S. manufacturers have plants in other countries, I don't know how they are going to enforce this unless they require your VIN number to determine if it was one of the 52% of GM cars that were actually made here. U.S. name brands still only manufacture 52 to 78% in the U.S., while most European manufacturers make 33 to 48% in the U.S. The brands that will likely experience a disappearance or price increase are the Volvo, Volkswagen, and Mazda, which only make between 13 and 21% of their vehicles here. What are your thoughts? Is this a big deal to you? Personally, I think the outcome will serve to bring more manufacturing into the U.S., which will benefit us in many ways. Oh, by the way, 100% of Teslas are made in the USA, so we have to give Elon props for that. The next change is the double death tax exemption. Personally, I don't know one person that's going to be inheriting a lot in the next few years, but it's always best to lower taxes, and maybe there are some people really hurting that will benefit. This change permanently doubles the estate tax exemption. I think the big beneficiaries on this one are the protection of family farms and businesses. These hardworking Americans and legal immigrants can pass their legacies to the next generation without facing heavy tax burdens. It's a way to preserve both wealth and livelihoods for families across the country, so I'm good with this one. The next provision is an interesting one. It creates savings accounts for newborns that can grow over time thanks to compounded growth. The Trump Savings Accounts is a pilot program that would automatically create a tax-deferred investment account with a $1,000 government deposit for every U.S. citizen child born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028, provided the infant and a parent have a Social Security number. Unlike a tax deduction, it's a government-seeded account where funds grow tax-free until age 18. At that time, half can be withdrawn for qualified expenses like education or home purchases. The money continues to grow with full access at 25 years old and unrestricted use by 30. Also, recipients or their parents can make additional contributions up to $5,000 annually. Personally, I think this is amazing. Most kids go off on their own without a dime in their pocket and absolutely no concept of what it costs to live. So it's not like a lottery win, but certainly enough for a young person to get started and perhaps put money down on a home. This is such a leg up for our youth, especially underprivileged kids who may not have a strong support system. For this reason, I think that this is a great move, and the way it's structured so that all the money is not released at once gives them an opportunity to learn financial responsibility rather than blowing it all at once. A couple provisions are intended to stimulate business by decreasing taxes, especially for businesses in opportunity zones, which are economically distressed areas. There are so many destroyed cities that this will be a good thing down the line if residents of these cities come together as a community to help create the fabric of their neighborhood. Next, the increased state and local tax, or SALT, deduction cap. This change raises the state and local tax deduction cap from $10,000 to $40,000 for 5 years. This will be a pretty significant deduction for taxpayers in high-tax states. Now we're getting to what I think was why this bill was so important. Border wall and security funding was allocated $46.5 billion for border wall construction and $60 billion for customs and border protection operations. I was actually quite surprised that the left and the rhinos allowed this to pass, so I'm thinking they shot everything they had in the Biden era and have resigned themselves to the fact that the borders are closed. Related to this was an increased funding for ICE and Border Patrol personnel, which funds 10,000 new ICE officers, 5,000 customs officers, and 3,000 Border Patrol agents by 2029, with $10,000 annual bonuses for frontline workers. I think most of the country is finally coming on board with the need for border enforcement. This funding boost also came with $2.4 billion allocated to state and local law enforcement partnerships. This is done through grants that support hiring additional police officers, upgrading equipment, and implementing community policing strategies, with a focus on reducing violent crime and fostering trust between law enforcement and communities. So the states that cooperate with the federal government in enforcement efforts will receive money for their efforts. There's also a focus on modernization of immigration enforcement infrastructure, with $1.5 billion set aside for ICE facility upgrades, IT investments, and fleet modernization. The Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement Office will see an increase in staff thanks to new funding. This change is designed to provide better support and resources for Americans and legal immigrants who have been victimized by crimes. Next is some reforms on benefits for the poor. Work requirements for SNAP are being introduced, which means able-bodied recipients will now need to work, volunteer, or participate in education or training programs. This change is designed to promote self-sufficiency while preserving benefits for those truly in need. There is increased funding for federal law enforcement training centers, with $750 million appropriated for training facilities through 2029. There's now a tax increase on large university endowments and nonprofits that operate like businesses. After seeing the NGO scams that DOJ uncovered, where politicians are making millions from these tax-free companies, this should cut a lot of money off to those running these charity scams. Lastly is the repeal of green energy tax credits and the opening of federal lands for oil, gas, and mineral leasing. I don't know about you guys, but I have never used one of these green tax credits because I can't afford the green technology in order to get the credit. So this is not going to help the little guy, but maybe tax the wealthy who can afford to go green. So in summary, the bill fell short of any immediate relief for Americans. It was mostly increasing deductions at tax time for Americans, but it is laying the groundwork for money to get the illegal immigrants out of the country by allotting funds for enforcement. If that's the way that we have to play this game in Congress, then I find it a very positive move that we got any money from them to fix the mess created by their lack of oversight during the Biden years. Also, pro-gun legislation had to be removed from the bill to get it passed, but you can bet there will be more. The only negative that I really saw is that the bill is increasing the national debt and deficit by about $2.4 trillion over a decade. First, I'll be shocked if the Federal Reserve exists in 3 years. I don't think that there is any way that we can get out of the current national debt situation without forgiveness or default. The Federal Reserve has no collateral other than bonds, which are basically useless because technically we are already bankrupt. I think that it's important to understand that this isn't the last bill or relief that we are going to get. It's the first, and many more are planned and already in the works. The left is working on the New Way Forward Act, which protects illegals who committed crimes so they are not deported, and even better, we pay the bill for their legal representation. The right side is working on eliminating all taxes for seniors and submitting retribution checks to all American citizens in the near future. Also, the left narrative is that these cuts don't even begin until 2028, which is misinformation. For some reason, many of these cuts are temporary and actually expire in 3 or 4 years, which reinforces the notion that this isn't the end goal for us. So as we predicted, no big bombshells yet. We are still in a holding pattern, but the biggest thing I see in this bill is that it's going to allow us to begin a purge of illegals without constant frivolous lawsuits delaying deportations. It's also going to provide the money and enforcement agents to expedite it. The bill was a lot of hype and distraction, but the one who is awake realizes that it's not what you see that is important. It's what's going on behind the scenes. If you like what I do, please share and like my videos. The channel is definitely being shadow banned, so if you want to be sure that my videos are served to you by YouTube, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. It's easy to unsubscribe at any time. I was so excited about the channel's silver plaque for 100,000 subscribers, but I was informed that we won't be getting one because my videos have violated their policies. I have to color inside the lines for a year to get it, and I don't see that happening. Till next time, Remember that to awaken within the illusion is to become dangerous, not to the world, but to the lie that governs it.